Okay, so today we're learning about converting between fractions and decimals. Should be on page 190 in our books. All right, in example 1, we're converting 7 over 20 to a decimal. So in your calculators, everybody in your calculators, whenever you want to convert a fraction to a decimal, you divide numerator by denominator, 7 divided by 20. Always top divided by the bottom. 7 divided by 20 is? Somebody know? No. 7 divided by 20. 0.35. If you do 20 divided by 7, you'll get the wrong answer. Okay, you must do the top number divided by the bottom number. Now, what if you had a mixed number like 3 and 5/8? Okay? Now, for 3 and 5/8, you could just divide 5 divided by 8 to get what the decimal would be. I think that tends to be a little more confusing, but if you want to do it that way, you can. What I suggest is that you go ahead and switch it to an improper fraction, 29 over 8, and then in your calculator, divide 29 divided by 8, and what do you get? 3.625. All right, everybody see that in your calculators? 3.625. So change the mixed number to a decimal. Okay, change the mixed number to an improper fraction, then divide top divided by bottom, and that gives you your decimal value. Okay? So what are we doing? Dividing numerator by denominator to get our decimal value. All right, now in example 2, we're writing fractions as repeating decimals, so we're dealing with terminating and repeating decimals. All right, so can anybody give me an example of a repeating decimal? Jonathan?
1.3333.
Very good. 1.3333, and it keeps going forever. Okay? And then a terminating decimal would be something like 3.2, 4.45. All right, it has an end. That's where we can kind of use common sense and think, okay, terminating means that it ends. Repeating means that it goes on forever. So if I want to convert 5/3 to a decimal, I'm still going to put it in my calculator, 5 divided by 3. And what do you get? Garrett?
1.666.
Okay, 1.666, and it keeps going. But how many of you, the last number on your calculator says a 7? Okay, now, is this 7 really the answer? Is that really the number? No, that's your calculator rounding that last digit. Okay, so 7 is not part of this answer. I know that 6 is repeating. So whatever digit is repeating, I use what we call bar notation to write my answer, and I would say 1.6 repeating. Now what about 13 over 33? Go ahead and try to convert that to a decimal. If it's a repeating decimal, make sure you use your bar notation. All right, what'd you come up with?
39.
What was it, Gage?
0.39 repeating.
0.39 repeating. And since both numbers are the repeating numbers, I would put the bar over the 3 and the 9. How many of you got that? Okay, good. Pretty much everybody. All right, very good. So that's it for example 2. Any questions? I'll go ahead and pause it and answer questions. All right, now moving on to example 3. Now we're going to switch gears and we're going to go the other way. Okay, how do we write a decimal as a fraction? Well, we have 0.85. And the first step to writing a decimal as a fraction is to look at the last number in the decimal. What place is this number in? What place value? Is it the tenths or the hundredths? It's in the hundredths place. Whatever place it's in is going to be your denominator. Since it's in the hundredths place, 100 will be your denominator. And then the entire decimal number goes up in your numerator. So it's going to be 85 over 100. But is that going to be your final answer?
No.
Why? You need to reduce. What can you reduce by? You can reduce both top and bottom by 5. What's 85 divided by 5? And what's 100 divided by 5? And that would be your final answer. That's how you convert a decimal into a fraction. Okay? Now, what if you had 4.375? What kind of a fraction is this going to be? Ethan?
A whole.
It's going to be starts with an M, Tyler?
Mixed.
It's going to be a mixed number, okay? And 4 will be what in my fraction? It'll be the whole number, okay? So I already know that 4 is going to be my whole number. Now I look at the decimal part of this number, 0.375. The 5 is in what place?
Thousands.
The thousands place, so that's my denominator. And I bring 375 into my numerator. Now, final answer? No, because what do I need to do?
Reduce.
I need to reduce. What can I divide by? 5 will take an awful long time.
50.
Not 50,
15.
not 75, 25. Now, there is a bigger number, but it's a little bit harder to come up with, so we can just reduce by 25. That's fine. All right, so then we get 4 and 15 over 40. 4 and 15 over 40. All right, and is that my final answer?
No.
What's my final answer? 4 and 3/8. 4 and 3/8, okay? So we just keep reducing until the fraction is in simplest form. And that's how you would write a decimal as a fraction. Any questions? Okay, let's move on to example 4. Now, in example 4, we're ordering numbers, okay? Now, it's giving us an example. Basically, what they're saying is these 4 states make up a certain area of the entire country, okay? So they're saying that Alaska, the total area of Alaska is 1/6 of the land of the entire United States. Montana is 1/25, California is 17 over 400, and Texas is 9 over 125. Now, while you're copying that down, who wants to find an LCD for that one? Okay? No, that does not look fun. I have 400 and 125, and then I've got to find a number that 6 goes into 2. That's too hard. Okay? So there's another way that I can find out what's the smallest and what's the biggest without having to find a common denominator. And that's by converting it to a decimal. I can convert all of these numbers to decimals, and then I can see which one is the smallest and which one is the biggest. All right, so in your calculators, convert 1/6 to a decimal. What do you get?
Well, what's it read?
0.16 repeating. Very good. Okay, go ahead and convert the other 3 fractions to decimals. I'll give you a minute to do that. All right, so what would 1 over 25 be as a decimal? 0.04. What would 17 over 400 be? 0.0425. What about 9 over 125? 0.072. So now I have all of their decimal values. Now I can look at them and see which decimal is the lowest value. Well, the first thing you want to do whenever you're comparing decimal values is you look at the very first number. They're all zeros. Okay? All the numbers are zeros in your ones place. All right, so then you look at your tens place. You have a 1, a 0, 0, and a 0. So now we're down to Montana, California, and Texas for the smallest. Then we have a 4, and a 7. So now it's between these two, Montana and California. But what number is after the 4 for Montana? A 0. So which one is smaller, 0 or 2? 0. So which one is the smallest? Montana. So Montana is the smallest, and I'm going to write it. I corrected it in a second. I'm going to write it in its original form, 1 over 25. then California, so 17 over 400, then Texas, so 9 over 125, and then Alaska. So at times when you have denominators that are just ridiculously big and it would be really difficult to find a common denominator, you can convert them all to decimals and then compare which one is smaller and which one is bigger. All right, and if you understand that, that's everything you need to know for 4.7.